Alright guys, so for the next segment in our shading project, notice that I've kept the same sheet that I had my value scale on, and I'm using a white object. The reason you want to use a white object for this next segment is that it is very easy to see value structure. So that's our next term we're using, is value structure. You're basically looking at the values that my lamp, which is casting light this way, you're looking at the values that are created on this white cup. Um, so if try your best to get a white object, because I'm using this coffee cup because it's devoid of any kind of logos or distracting information, and it really just gives us a good look at how the values we've already created apply to a three-dimensional object. So we're jumping from just working with charcoal and kind of an abstract value scale. Now we're going to see how the shadows and the light values on that object relate to the abstract value scale we've made. So what I want you to do is to make, I made a 3" by 3" square, but really they're kind of like what we call thumbnails, these kind of smaller scale drawings. And with your object, I want you to limit your value structure to only 3 values: a dark, a middle value, and a light. And so you have to make some decisions about where the darkest darks are on here, where your middle value sits, where your lightest light sits. So when I'm looking at this object, the darkest dark I'm probably going to take is going to be right here. I mean, I know there's a cast shadow here, and yes, you can count that too if you want. We can count that as, you can say 4 values, because your darkest dark is probably going to be your cast shadow. But on the object itself, there's this dark value here, kind of a middle value in here, and then the lights really are around the inside of the cup and the edge of that handle. So you might be asking, why do this? Why not just try to draw all the shadows there? Well, you could, but then you might get confused, or you might be spending, an hour on these things. And I really want you to only spend about 10 to 15 minutes at the most. And you're really just looking at what's the most important value structure to create that object. So this is really important, how this dark goes around the object here, and then there's this lighter value here. Now this light value, you could pretty much count that as a similar middle value here, but then the lightest light you're going to have to use for your rim and the inside of the cup. So you're not really trying to delineate all the details. You're just trying to say what value shape, what block of value creates that. What block of value creates that? And so by limiting you to 3, 4 if we count the cast shadow, you're really just looking at what type of lights and shadows really create that object. So I've done one of these squares here, and once again you want to use charcoal pencil and an eraser, and I've begun the drawing with my mechanical pencil, or once again 2B pencil. And so, like I said, these shouldn't be too, so decide what your darkest value is. So I'm thinking this area is the darkest value. And don't get held up on reflections, because it's porcelain. You're just looking at blocking in your 3 values: your dark value, your middle value, and your light value. So like I said, this is really important right here. Notice how I'm not really going dark. I'm just saying that this is my darkest value. The handle is pretty much going to be all dark value. Notice how the dark value stays the same. So just doing a dark value. then really be aware of like that light shape, because that, you can say that's your light value right there. What kind of shape does this light value make? So we went kind of dark there, so let's tidy that up a little bit. So notice I'm not doing all the details. I'm not going into detail. I'm just creating a value structure. So I got a little dark there. So like I said, let's count this cast shadow. Count that. And really be aware of how the curve of that, and where that cast shadow goes. So you can just get really, with your cast shadows, you can just go straight black with it. Be aware of what shape that shadow makes. And so then this, that lighter value we were talking about, this is our middle value right here. And if you want, you can, if you need to use your blending stick to kind of lighten something up, make it a little more middle tone. And then the lightest value is going to be the rim of the cup. So I'm actually going to erase some of my pencil lines here. And you really want to try to see how those lights work on top. So we've got another middle value. The inside of the cup here is a middle value, so you're not really going to change it. This value and that value are pretty much the same. Notice how that shape is an interesting, really interesting shape in there. But the difference, though, is you see where your light value is what creates this edge here. So you gotta really gotta sharpen up this edge. Like I said, you're just simplifying. You're simplifying as much as possible here. So I'm trying to, you really want to try to keep everything the same value. This is all that middle value. And if you need to, like I'm doing right now, that light value, you can go in and just erase in your lightest value, which is what I'm doing right now to create the rim of our cup. Because sometimes, it gets a little messy in there. And it's kind of up to you how much you want to include around this edge here. But see, notice how we really only have this value I don't even make an edge here. This value, the middle value, these two values are pretty much the same, and then the light values. So you can, if you want to go in a little more detail and just kind of go around it, but that's it. It's really only the shape here, that shape, this shape, that shape. And that's all I'm looking for. It's very simple. You're not going in for a lot of detail. Just really try to get some basic shapes in there. So look at that, just really basic. See our value structure? We have a dark tone, a middle tone, and the white of the paper for our white tone. That's really what I want you to try. Just really simplify an object into 3 basic tones. So white, your darkest dark. Cast shadows count, so you can go, but just think of your cast shadows as your darkest dark. Um, but yeah, there's really no detail on there. It's just value shape against value shape.